Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the First Class Sports Podcast. And my name is Bobby. As you can see, I am riding solo today. It is actually Friday, January 12th, 2024. We actually tried to get Eric here. We kept postponing to try to get him here, and things just didn't work out. And I didn't want to bug Dad, so we're just going to do this first one now. So, this first Wildcard weekend, we only got 6 games, and I first want to apologize for not getting an episode out last week. That was week 18, and we didn't get one out. Kind of the same thing, trouble with Eric, and then I can't remember. I think Dad was taking, there was something with Dad where I couldn't bug him or he wasn't even home. So, just been a tough couple of weeks. But we will try to get back on pace here to try to close out the season. As I stated, we are going into the wild card weekend of the NFL. The regular season is wrapped up. And as you can see, we only have a few helmets on the table. We have 6 games today this week. And then we'll drop down to even fewer. So these episodes should be getting lower and lower in time, just because it won't be as much to talk about. So the Colts, obviously, for those who don't know, we're massive Colts fans, and they did not make the playoffs. So they got beat out by the Texans in Colts fashion. We choked it away. We had a chance, dropped a ball on fourth down that should have been caught off ball by Gardner, but two hands by the running back and should have had it. But I digress. So let's talk about a little bit of news here before we get into the playoff games. Okay, so let's talk about some coaching changes real quick. Normally after week 18, we basically have a fire sale on Monday, and some head coaches get let go. Some happened Monday, some happened a few days ago, some happened during the season, but I will talk about the vacancies. We have New England is not really a big surprise. I think we kind of talked about it, that it very well could happen. It was a lot of speculation up until then. This sounded like it was a mutual parting. Bill Belichick will no longer be the head coach of the New England Patriots. I believe he's been there for 27 years. I wish I had Eric here to kind of debate some things, so maybe I can bring it up next week. Eric, if you're watching, got some things to talk about Bill, so remind me. That was a quick move to replace him, though. They have already hired their new head coach in Jared Mayo. I don't know much about him. He will be the next head coach. Next, in a surprising move, Pete Carroll is out in Seattle. Didn't see that coming. I'm not really sure if it was mutual or they kind of sat him down and was like, hey, we can do this the hard way or the easy way. And I think he's staying on as like the team assistant or advisor for Seattle. Either way, he's not going to be the head coach. Interesting. Next, Tennessee, Mike Vrabel. That was kind of big. That one shocked me, I think, the most. Now, I think it's his own damn fault. He came out a few weeks ago and said that he would be interested in the New England head coaching job if that opened up, and then I think they promptly said, you want to bet, and then just kicked him out. So that might have been his own fault. Either way, Tennessee, out of head coach. Atlanta, everyone kind of saw this one coming. Atlanta will no longer have Arthur Smith as their head coach. There's a vacancy. During the season, Vegas fired Josh McDaniel. We knew that. Still, head coaching job vacancy if they don't keep their the interim. Same with LA Chargers. They got rid of Brandon Staley. Same with Carolina when they got rid of Frank Reich. And then Washington got rid of Ron Rivera. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 8 currently. 8 head coaching vacancies. 7 because New England hired their new one already. So, wow, 8 coaches, and now we have a 7th, or now only 7. So, next I will get into, before we get into NFL, I'm going to go ahead. I'm sure you've heard that I'm a huge Michigan fan, both me and my dad. We had a great Monday. Monday was the Natty, and Dad and I sat down and watched the game. Of course, they had to go through Alabama. That, overtime win, huge. Then they had to face Washington. Washington worried me. Their offense was very good. Penix Jr. coming in very hot, a Heisman finalist. Michigan went in there, and I'll tell you what. First 2 drives, shoved it down their throat. And then kind of slowed up in the second, in the third, and about the 9-minute mark in the fourth. I started pacing in my room. I'm going to tell you. It looked kind of, we still had a 7-point advantage, but, our defense was hanging in there. But Dad and I definitely were hyped when Michigan took home the Natty, first time in 27 years. So good job, Harbaugh, through everything, the whole season with the scandals. And I wish I had Dad here to kind of bounce off that. If current players, ex-players, coaches, everyone has said that the whole sign stealing scandal thing is nothing but it's like every single team does it, and it's just like, okay, Michigan got caught, cry about it. It's nothing to really, I think Dion said it. You can know the play, you still gotta stop it. So I think the whole thing's blown out of proportion, to be completely honest. And even after that the whole thing was kind of brought up. They had to beat Penn State. They did. They had to beat Ohio State. They did. They had to beat Alabama. They did. They had to beat Washington. They did. So their harder schedule came after the thing, and then everybody knew about it. And it's just like, I don't know. The whole thing is just pure stupidity and just Michigan haters wanting something else to cry and whine and moan about. It's like, listen, your team does it. I guarantee you. Who knows what's going to happen with Harbaugh? There's a lot of speculation that he is going to now go to the NFL. But I also hear he really loves Michigan. So we're really going to find out what happens there. Bigger news in college world, Nick Saban is retiring, or at least leaving Alabama. I think he's at the point to where he will stay retired. I don't think he's going to go. He very well could, but I don't see it. So he's out in Alabama. Going to be really weird seeing Alabama with a new coach. And their new coach was just found today. I don't know how to say his name. I'm going to butcher it. It's Kellen DeBoer. Now, he was the head coach for Washington, who was just in the Natty, ranked number 2, played Michigan in the national championship. So now he leaves and goes to Alabama. Interesting. So that's going to be a hot take for that. So we'll see. We now move on to college is now going to go to their 12-team playoff format. This was the last year where it was the 4-team format. Next year will be 12, and the first 4 will get the first round bye. So it's kind of for recapping a little bit of the craziness after the final week of the NFL regular season and after the Natty. So it's been fun to bounce that back and forth, but just some information for you guys. So we'll go into the Wildcard weekend because it's the weather's going to be a huge factor. I will tell you, last week I went 7-9, and Eric. Let me see what Eric went, because I did not get his. Eric went 8-8. So for the year, that leaves me at 159 and 113. And for Eric, that leaves Eric. He has now, I believe, passed me. He has, in fact. Eric, you are now sitting at 162 and 110. So coming down the road, I've struggled. You've captured fifth place in our little rankings here. So let's go into Wildcard, which we have games starting on Saturday, which would be tomorrow. Saturday we will start at the 4:30 with Browns at Houston. Now, I spoke a little bit. Houston ended the season. There were 3 teams in the AFC South who could actually win the AFC South. The Colts played Houston, and it was a win or go home. And then you had to wait for Tennessee to play Jacksonville. Because if Jacksonville lost, you could win the division and be in the 4th seed, not the 7th seed. And that's what happened. Houston ended up beating the Colts in Indy. And then Jacksonville ended up choking the division away that they had a stranglehold on the entire year to Tennessee. Derrick Henry had a phenomenal game against them to end the season, played spoilers, and now Jacksonville and the Colts are sitting at home, and the team that I think most people thought was going to finish 4th in the AFC South finishes 1st with C.J. Stroud as a rookie. So kudos to him. A great rookie season. And now they get a home game against the Browns. Now the Browns rested their players because they cannot move up or down. And I think they're thankful that they will actually go to Houston because in Cleveland, they're getting some weather out there. But I think Joe Flacco has much more experience in the playoffs, and Joe Flacco has been phenomenal since he has started for the Browns. And that defense is absolutely stifling. And I think C.J. Stroud, we witnessed it even with the Colts. If you pressure C.J. Stroud, he has issues. And that is where Cleveland capitalizes, is their front 7 with Myles Garrett. And I just think that defensive front is going to be way too much for Houston. They had a great season. Houston did, and it's going to be exciting and a little nerve-wracking as a Colts fan to see what this Houston team can be with C.J. Stroud going forward. With that said, I definitely think Cleveland is a underdog here to go pretty dang far in this in these playoffs. So I'm going to pick the Browns. Eric, on the other hand, is choosing the Texans. Very surprising there, to be honest with you. Next, the Saturday night game at 8:10. This is going to be an absolute crazy game. The weather in Kansas City is going to be very, very, very bad. I think it is going to be historically low weather. Cold, I believe, probably snowstorms. I can't remember. The snow might just be hitting the East Coast. But Kansas City is going to be, I believe, at game time, around 8:10, will be negative 10 degrees. Miami, all they had to do was beat Buffalo, their final game. They finished 3-3, I believe, Miami did. A few of them were to really good teams. One of them, however, was Tennessee, which they easily could have won. And then they lost to Buffalo in Miami. If you had beaten Buffalo in Miami, you would have won the division, and you would be playing a game in warm weather. Now you must travel to Kansas City, where it's going to be negative 10 degrees. It's going to be bad for you guys. I don't know who this favors, because realistically, this could be a run-heavy game, because let's face it, Kansas City's receivers can't catch a ball to save their life in warm weather. Kelsey's the only one who can catch a ball, and he's been irrelevant for the past 6 to 7 weeks. He really has. Sorry, he just has. He's been focusing on his love life and T Swift for far too long, and it's affecting. It really has. That's just a shot there to T Swift fans. Sorry, Travis needs to think about what he wants because it's clearly obvious that the back half of the season, he started off pretty hot this season, and then the back half he's been quite literally irrelevant. I think he finished the 15th tight end in the league when he was like number 1 for the past 2-3 years. And he's the only one who can catch a ball. Now, in warm weather, now it's quite literally throwing a frozen brick. No wide receiver is going to be able to catch that on Kansas City's team. Nobody. So this is going to be a run-heavy game. And I believe that favors Achane and Mostert and Tua of Miami. However, Tua in big games, I believe, has not won in this cold weather. When it comes to cold weather games, big games in cold weather, he's winless. And I don't know if that changes, but I'm going to give Miami the upset. I truly am, because Kansas City has not shown me anything to be afraid of. I'm sorry. They haven't, Steven. I know. I'm sorry. If you're watching, you're editing this, I'm sorry. You know just as well as I have. Their wins have been lazy. Their wins have been lucky. And their losses have just been bad. You know it. And so Miami has some key wins. You know, Miami has beaten Dallas in Dallas. So it just, you know, beating Dallas in Dallas was a huge win. But then they got curb stomped by the Ravens in Baltimore. Understandable. And then you lose at home to Buffalo. But I think I have to give it to the Dolphins only because of the weather. If the weather was a little bit... I think even if this was in Miami and with the home team, I might actually have gone with the Chiefs just because I almost count that as neutral field for Patrick Mahomes. The weather's going to neutralize a lot of that. I'm going to go Dolphins. And Eric is against me in going the Chiefs. I'm not saying that's a bad pick. Now we move over to Sunday at 1 o'clock, which is... we have to keep an eye on this game. This is going to be an absolute awful game. The weather is predicted to be 65-mile-per-hour winds, and travel currently is dangerous to untravelable at the moment. And they're not postponing the game at the moment. It could change. They're getting slammed with a winter storm up on the East Coast. So we will see. This is Steelers at Buffalo, and this game could, it's going to be very, very interesting. I believe they're starting Rudolph in Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh lost T.J. Watt in Week 18. That was the only hope they had at this game being even close, was if they had T.J. Watt. Without T.J. Watt, even in this weather, Buffalo's winning all day, every day. So I'm going Buffalo here. And Pittsburgh, who really shouldn't even be in here, gets kicked out. Eric is also going Buffalo. Next, you have Packers at Cowboys. The easy thing here would be to go Dallas, wouldn't it? Now, I'm so far out that I don't care. I don't have a chance to win this. I think this one, my hatred for Dallas is going to get me. Dallas, the last 10 times against Green Bay, is 1-9 against Green Bay. including playoffs. Now I understand that is all Aaron Rodgers. But so is the ownership over to the Chicago Bears. And guess what? When Aaron Rodgers left, he handed the deed over to Chicago to Jordan Love. And now Jordan Love is the new owner of the Chicago Bears. And so now you have Green Bay against the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are looking at that going, there's absolutely no way we have to play Green Bay in the wild card round. I'm going to go Green Bay strictly for kicks and giggles. And that's just me being funny. Do I really think Dallas could win that one? Probably. But I'm going to go Green Bay just for fun. And you know what? That's really funny. So is Eric. Eric's going Green Bay too. That's really funny. Next, you have the Rams at the Lions. And boy, would you look at that. The Lions have won their division for the first time, the division for the first time in 30 years. This is the first time they've ever won the NFC North. Now they have a home game, but look who's coming home. You have Matthew Stafford knocking at the door. Matthew Stafford and the Rams, after a disappointing year last year, I know Stafford was hurt, started a little sluggish this year, and then Puka Nacua comes in and has a phenomenal rookie year, breaks all rookie records. Cooper Kupp does what he's got to do, and then you have Kyron Williams being absolutely crazy back. You know, no one would have had him as the running back that he is, at the beginning of the year. So, as much as it pains me, I think Stafford, this is the last team that I think Detroit wanted to see come in here. You also had Laporta get hurt. Now he has a chance to play, but how effective is he going to be now? This hurts their chances tremendously. This could be a shootout. I think this will be a shootout. This is going to come down to maybe who has the ball last. Goff has been playing great. Stafford's been playing great. So is Gibbs. So is Montgomery. St. Brown. But I think this is where Stafford comes in and comes back to Detroit and spoils the fun. And I'm going to go with the Rams to upset the Lions, as much as I do not want to take that pick. I think that that's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, I would love to choose the Lions here. Eric is going Lions. Don't blame you. Lastly, you have Eagles at Buccaneers. Let me tell you something. Eagles finished their season 1-5. Their last 6 games, they went 1-5. And they lost to the Seattle, they lost to the Cardinals, and they lost to the Giants. Those 3 teams are unacceptable to lose to. Maybe Seattle with Geno, okay. Cardinals, you had no business losing to. Giants, no business losing to. The Eagles are in a spot where I do not believe there's something wrong in the locker room. Sirianni may be out of job. He may be the next one if he gets bounced here. And I think it's relevant that Shane Steichen really knew how to run that offense with Jalen Hurts. And now that he's gone, they're showing cracks and weaknesses all over that offense. And Baker's cooking. And when Baker can be left to bake with Mike Evans, look, it's kind of lucky that they got it in Tampa and not up in Philly. This might change that might have changed my pick maybe a little bit, but I'm going to go Tampa here. I'm going to go with the upset, and Philly, just like Kansas City, is just not scaring a damn soul. So, this could be the year where both Super Bowl teams from last year are bounced in the first round. I know some Super Bowl teams just don't even make the playoffs next year, but to have both be bounced in the first round, crazy. And I think it happens. I'm going to go Tampa. So is Eric. Eric, you're also going Tampa. Let's see what you're doing. This wildcard weekend could really be wild. It really could with the stories. You look at the matchups that we have, and you look at the storylines. You go Browns and Texans, and you have who won the trade for Deshaun Watson. Now, I understand that Deshaun isn't starting, but that's even more leverage for Houston to go, ha-ha. But, how many picks did they give Houston for Deshaun? And Deshaun's now not even starting, and it's Daddy Joe Flacco. All right. You scroll down, and you got Dolphins and Chiefs, the return of Tyreek Hill to Kansas City. You keep going, and you go Packers at Cowboys. Packers go to see their old head coach, who coached Green Bay forever, and Mike. So, does he? What happens there? How many times did Green Bay go into the playoffs when Mike McCarthy was there? And now you got Green Bay coming to see him in Dallas, and now we'll see the outcome there, because every time he just gets bounced in the most crazy way. Happened in Green Bay, it could happen here in Dallas. That'll be interesting. And then, of course, you have Stafford going home to Ford Field and the Lions. You have some good storylines here in this first round, especially with the weather, too. The weather up on the East Coast around Lake Erie is crazy. That's another storyline. I believe I saw that it's the first time ever that all three Lake Erie teams are in the playoffs at the same time. That would be Browns, Detroit, Buffalo. And we will see, guys. Interesting. And again, I would like to apologize that it is just me. I know I'm a little, not as excited, not as down. I don't have anybody to bounce off of, is what it is. But I didn't want to miss 2 weeks in a row. I felt like that was, and with Steven going through some medical things, hopefully we can get him to edit. Hopefully he's feeling better. We can get back to normalcy here soon. Eric apologizes greatly. It's been a rough few weeks for him and his family, and everything they're going through. Completely understand. Going to work through and try. I've extended this episode a little bit just by jabbering, but we will try our darndest to get him here next week. And then try to get my buddy Justin. As you can see, I have a pop figure over there, Justin, who's been here. If you were here in season 1, he's the one who gave me the Indiana little wood plaque of the Colts and everything like that. He was in my fantasy league, and he won that pop figure for winning my fantasy league. He's a huge Chicago Bear fan. I know I just trashed him, but it is what it is. I think he knows it by now. So hopefully I can get him as a guest. Anyway. Hopefully we'll see Eric back next week. You guys have a good weekend. Be safe out there for anybody, watching over the weekend. It's going to get cold. It's going to get bad. Be safe. Catch you next week.